Fray Check. I don't know if you have ever used the liquid seam sealant called Fray Check by Dritz. It is a remarkable product, but it is also kind of dangerous. So we're going to talk about Fray Check in random review number 3. I'm going to get a piece of fabric. So here's a little bag of fabric. So I had to dispose of my last bottle of Fray Check, and the reason I had to was that it got very gummy and it would not dispense from this bottle. And if you read about Fray Check, then you'll know that it's almost like a linoleum, a liquid linoleum. It is also very flammable. So I'm going to remove it from the bubble wrap package here, and I will let you look at that. So it does say to always test on a scrap of intended fabric before use. So you would not test it on this fabric to use it on this fabric. You would test it on this fabric to use it on this fabric. If you have a piece of white fabric and a piece of blue fabric and they're made by the same company and they have the same fabric, you know, fibers, the blue dye may react differently than just the plain white fabric. It does tell you to follow all the fabric garment care instructions and to place a piece of cardboard between the area that you're working, this, and the fabric, this. So you don't want to do it directly onto this unless you're using a craft mat. And I do have a craft mat and I'm going to use it today. Okay. So then we need to remove the blue cap, puncture the tip with a pin or snip it off close to the tip, and you want to apply a very small amount. That I realize is very subjective, but drenching your fabric is not a good idea. You need to allow that product to then dry for about 15 to 30 minutes. And you always want to make sure that this lid is replaced and very tightly replaced, not just kind of popped on there, but you really want it on there because this will dry out and turn into, I don't even know what that is. Okay, you need to use it in a well-ventilated area, so open a window or do it outside, and do not do this near anything that has a flame. Don't do it in your kitchen near a gas stove, a pilot light, any object that's going to spark like an electric motor, anything at all that could possibly create a spark or cause a fire. This contains N-propanol, nylon, terpolymers, and water. It also has, if I'm not mistaken, it contains alcohol. A couple of things to know in advance of using this. If you don't keep this out of the reach of children and you have an issue, the very first thing you want to do is get that person outside into fresh air if they're in the house and they've been using this and appear to be woozy or they have fainted. Obviously you would not put this on your eyes. It's crazy that they even have to put that on there. Maybe because it looks like eye drops. A plain paper envelope. But I feel like they are capable of saving lives. Okay, so I know what Fray Check is. And I wrote Fray Check on here in Sharpie ink. Okay, now I'm going to put this into this envelope. Why am I doing that? Because it has what to do in case of an emergency. What do? You seek medical attention immediately if it's been swallowed. If there's eye contact, you flush with water. If there's skin contact, you wash thoroughly with soap and water. In case of inhalation, you move the person to fresh air. And above all, you keep out of the reach of children. But when you're faced with an emergency, sometimes you can't think. So I'm going to pop this in here in this envelope. Like so. It's in there. So now I have it. I have not thrown it in the garbage. It's right there. And when I'm not using this little bottle is going to go in here, and that's going to go in my box of sewing supplies and notions. That way, I am not going to go looking in a white envelope that says Fray Check for eye drops. That's what I do. Okay, so let me go grab the craft mat, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is a piece of fabric that is clearly capable of fraying all over the place. So I'm going to carefully cut this side right here. Okay. And before it has a chance to fray, I am going, I also have to, I have not opened it yet, so my favorite method is the pin method. Holy moly. Ah, there we go. Success. Okay, I have to remember to pick up all these little plastic shards. Okay. Alright, so as I said, before this fabric starts to fray, we want to put a small amount of Fray Check along this edge. And I do not recommend using your fingers to spread Fray Check. So if you put the lid back on tight, you can just kind of do that. Now I did cause that right there to happen, but it did not stick to this craft mat, which, you know, if you've ever used one of these, nothing sticks to them. Okay, and we're going to let that dry. Now I will tell you, it does cause kind of a, I think you can see, like, it looks wet. Maybe if I put my hand behind it, I really don't want to touch it. There, I think you can see that. Okay, we're just going to let that chill. I'm just going to get in the habit of putting it in here. And then if you need to, you can use a paper clip, which I have gobs of paper clips. Or you could even, you know, sacrifice one of your clover clips. You know, keep it like so. And then I'll just keep it with my sewing supplies right here. Like that. I know where it is. Okay. I'm going to check to see if it's still wet. Okay, nothing is coming off on my fingers, and the fabric still looks wet. So, there, I think. Yeah, you can see the difference So this would be my test strip of fabric, and if that does not dry and end up looking the same, then I don't think I would use Fray Check on this fabric. I feel like it would damage it. Okay, this is totally dry. Now I'm going to just kind of, there's two things I want to do. The other side, so this is the Fray Check side right here, and this is the pinked edge right here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing to the pinked edge that I'm going to do to the Fray Check side. So I'm going to try, I'm pinching the fabric pretty hard between my fingers and pulling out. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to the pinked edge. Okay, now in all honesty, I feel like the Fray Check side handled that abuse a lot better than the pinked side did. Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario in which something like what I'm doing would be, applied to the fabric to this abusive degree. I think for the most part it's just, the fabric on fabric contact, like maybe washing or walking around if you're wearing a garment. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I would have to say, given what I'm seeing here, I'll put it back on my hand again, the Fray Check on cotton fabric works better than the pinked edge. Okay, so then I wanted to try it on satin, and I will cut a piece of the satin. Okay. I'm going to remove the selvage there so it doesn't get confused. Okay. All right, this one will be P for pinked edge, and this one will be F for Fray Check. And I'm going to start them both off with a clean cut side. Okay, so there's the Fray Check clean cut side, and here is the pinked clean cut side. All right. So we're going to start with Fray Check on satin fabric. It is very hard to control how much of the product comes from this tip. So, as hard as you may try not to overdo, it's quite difficult. And this is the pinked, there's the P, And I'm just going to trim off okay. Now I'm not going to touch either of these until I feel like this Fray Check edge is dry. And I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely dark and you can clearly see it. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera, but this edge is very dark right here. There we go. I think you can see it now. Right there. Okay. This is a project that I worked on yesterday. So I have 4 bundles that look just like this, and each one of these strips has been numbered. So from 1 to 8. There's a 2. I don't know if you can see them on the camera, but each one. So all 4 will have a little tiny sticker with numbers to help me remember the order. The decision that I made yesterday was that I'm going to make these all the same on the front. Each one will be exactly the same, and they're just going to be strip pieced one after the other, 8, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across, and obviously on the outer edge of both sides and the cut edges I will have to be mindful of that 1/4 inch when it comes to the backing. The backing is where I'm trying to be a little bit more creative, and I honestly think I have come up with an idea. I want to do this for Valentine's Day, so I was kind of thinking it would be cute to use Valentine fabric. So I purchased this vintagey looking rose fabric. It is on Amazon, and I'll link that below in the description box. And I'm going to do the heart-shaped applique on the back on top of this duck canvas fabric. I love it. I think it'll be really cute. So how do you do that? Well, the idea of using a drop cloth, which is like the new hotness. I don't know if you've noticed that, but drop cloth is like all the rage. So it would be fun to bring that element to this project and then do a applique of some type of Valentine fabric on the drop cloth, and you could have that be your Valentine table topper, and then for the rest of the time you flip it over and you have this. Oops. These little stickers are like, I'm gonna fight you. So I think that's the direction that this project is going to take. I'm excited about that as well. So, okay, I'm gonna check to see if our Fray Check is dry. Oop, it feels dry. And again, it did not stick to this craft mat. It actually is just kind of peeling off. I don't know if you can see that. It's like that weird glue that things get stuck to. You know, that weird glue. Okay, so here we are. It's still dark, but it appears to be drying. And look, there's like a little plastic. That's kind of what I was talking about. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see, I'll use this. Maybe right there. There's like this little plastic. And that's what it does. That's what Fray Check looks like. Okay. All right. And then this, of course, we haven't done anything to other than trim with the blue snail pinking shears. Okay, so let's check this one first. There's one little hair here of fabric that has, oh, you know, actually never mind. That was just laying there. Okay. All right, I'm going to pull. Okay. That's pretty amazing. I got to tell you, it's like, and it doesn't feel like it has had something applied to it. It doesn't feel any different, with the exception of the fact that it's not doing this. It's really glued. Okay. Now here is the pinked side. Okay, and again, it handled itself quite well. And this side frayed. So I would say that either pinking or Fray Check work equally well on satin. But if you want to add a product to your sewing room that works that well, I would definitely recommend Fray Check. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've used Fray Check for many, many years. When I remember to use Fray Check, I mean, that's the thing. You kind of have to think to yourself, huh, I have Fray Check and I need to be using it. At least I do. Now, other people might be a little bit more, you know, able to remember. And I think if I put it next to my ironing board, I'll show you what I mean. I have this wonderful shelf that I use to keep all of my ironing supplies right there. So I have the Best Press, I have cans of starch, I have pins, I have a pitcher that I keep water in, and it is a shelf with a lip, so this envelope isn't likely to fall off of that shelf. When I'm standing there, I'm more likely going to remember it if it's up there rather than in a drawer, something like that. So that's what I think I'm going to do. Rather than putting this away in the drawer, I'm just going to go ahead and put this up on that shelf. I think that makes more sense. But I'm not going to take it out of the envelope. There's just, for me, it's a dangerous enough product that it needs this extra layer of, you know, protection. I need to make sure that anybody that comes in the sewing room would know what this is, and in the event there's an emergency, how to deal with it is on that piece of cardboard in here. So, okay, so I would say this is a win. I would give Fray Check I'm going to have to say 5 stars. I mean, it does what it says. It duly warns you. It tells you how to use it and what to expect. It does tell you to test. It did stain this. This is no longer wet, but there is clearly I'm trying to get it where you can see that there's a dark spot where I applied it. But it does tell you clearly to test it first. So if I were to use this along an edge that might be part of a, you know, a seam allowance, I don't think I'd mind if this were not visible. I wouldn't want to apply this after I've made a garment because it could easily stain it, but prior to sewing, I think it would work just fine. It may even wash out. It is washable, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that. Or does it say that on here? Yes. A liquid seam sealant that prevents fabric from fraying and secures the ends. Withstands repeated laundering and dry cleaning. It keeps ends from fraying, thread knots tight, and cuts on ribbons and trims from unraveling. take a little bit of Fray Check. Like a dot, honest to goodness, just a dot. Let's see if I can find a little knot and dip it. I can easily see that it's wet. So then I will put it right here. I'm just going to let it dry. And that knot, to be honest with you, that knot will probably never come undone. So it's a great way to secure a button. You're not likely going to lose the button due to this knot. Now if the thread breaks, that's a different story, but the knot won't come undone. Okay, so there are a multitude of great ways to use Fray Check, and these are just a few. I will tell you that I happen to like the product. I think it's good. It does have some things about it that are concerning, but you're not using gallons of it. You're just using a little bit here and there, so it shouldn't be too difficult to, keep what you're using to a minimum that would not likely end up causing an environmental issue. That's my take on it. Okay, alrighty, so I'll be back in just a minute. The next step is this project. The cool thing about this project is I can go ahead and strip these together. I can just, because that's all I'm going to do is just sew them one after the other to get them done. So that's the next thing that I have that I currently can work on. And since I've been just dying to sew, this is kind of fun. Next up for sewing is this. So basically what I'm going to do is sew in order the strips together. So this is the first one, and I don't know if you can see, I have a 2 sticker. So I'll just take the 2 off and take strip number 2. I want to make sure that my patterns are all, running in the right direction. So I'll do a test. That looks right. Line up the little pinked edge and then just take a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, then take strip 3, take the sticker off, and by sticking them on another piece of paper, I know that I have actually removed the sticker and it has been stitched. Oops, I have 2 here. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have not already subscribed, please consider doing so. And I will see you in the next video.